in the beginning of a Mishnah of on page 8a, and the page the Mishnah is talking about someone who is sitting in his home or in his own domain and taking a stone and throwing it to the public domain. We'll see, it's not exactly a public domain, it's not a public square, but a place where people are, other people that are not, it's outside of his property, and other people can be there. It's not a highway or a place, Times Square. And it killed someone. As he was throwing the stone, he killed someone. The stone killed someone. So this is the, he didn't mean to kill, he just threw the stone. Let's see who's coming. Who is on the phone? Hi.
This is Greg. For some reason, the link in the email.
Yeah, the link didn't work. So I sent you a link. I sent you the correct link. So you can look for in your email and click on it and.
Okay.
All right.
Okay, let me see the email.
See that you have the email.
Oh yeah, got it. I'm going to hang up and redial. Thank
Beautiful.
you.
Thank you.
Bye.
So I guess we'll wait for him. So is just 1 second. Going once, going twice. Let's see that it comes in. There we go. Okay. So, hi Greg. So, we're talking about 8.8, someone who's throwing stone to a public domain, not a full of people, but a place that someone else can be, not my own private domain, right outside of it. And that stone kills someone. So this is the classic situation when someone did something unintentionally, killed unintentionally, and therefore he needs to run away to a refuge city. That is the first law. Rab Lezer ben Yaakov says, and many say that he's not disputing with that law that we just mentioned, he's just adding to it, and saying, however, if when after the stone left the hand of the person who throws it, and while the stone is traveling through the air, the deceased stuck his head, in the path of the stone outside of the window or something, and that's why he was hit, meaning the other guy didn't have any ability to know that this guy exactly is going to stick his head in the path of the stone. So then it's not called unintentional. It's like under duress. He was forced. It was forced upon him. It's not that had he checked, he would be able to do it, because he had no idea when if he did check, the person was not there, so he threw it in a clear path. But then the person stuck his head out and died. So in that case, says Rab Lezer ben Yaakov, it's such a lenient situation, a person doesn't even have to run to a refuge city. That is the second law of the Mishnah. The third law of the Mishnah is, if a person threw the stone inside his own domain, from the house to the yard, from the yard to the yard, inside the house, he threw the stone in his own domain, and a foreign person that doesn't belong there, that is not his family, was there and was killed. So what's the law then? If that person was there with a permission, then the killer has to run to a refuge city because, he should have checked and, he didn't. But so it's an unintentional situation. He has a lot to repent on so he's running to a refuge city. However, if that person didn't have the permission to be there, it was an intruder, a trespasser, anybody that was not supposed to be there, then the owner is totally not responsible and is supposed to run to a refuge city. If he was moving things in his own yard and he didn't let anybody in because he knew that he's doing work. So then it was like forced on him, and he does not need to go to refuge city, to run away. How do we know it? So the Gemara is saying, שנאמר ואשר יבוא, the Mishnah is saying, אשר נאמר ואשר יבוא את רעהו ביער. Meaning that when the Torah is giving the whole laws of killing intentionally, not intentionally, and needing to run to a refuge city, it's talking about someone who is coming with his friend to the forest, right? And in the forest, one of them is chopping wood, and the ox or the piece of wood flew and killed the other one. So why is the Torah going to that length to tell you this kind of a story? To tell you that you have to equate all of the situations, all of the cases that applies to the case that the Torah is mentioning. Just like in the forest, who is allowed, who has a permission to go into the forest? Forest is a public domain. Anybody can go there. So the person who was killing and the person who died both had permission to go there. So therefore we are learning that when is the situation applied to go to a refuge city and somebody killing unintentionally is when both the killer and the deceased has permission to go in there. What are we excluding? We're excluding if someone is going into a place that they should not be in. יצא חצר בעל הבית שאין רשות לניזק להיכנס שם. It's that's the exception, that the person was not supposed to be there and he was killed. So it's not the problem of the killer, not as much of a problem, and he does not need to run to a refuge city. There is an interesting comment here, and that is that there is an opinion, strong opinion, that even that the opposite also applies. If the killer went into someone else's property and over there he threw the stone unintentionally, we're not talking about someone who went there to kill, right? He threw a stone, he went to someone else's property, threw a stone and killed the owner who definitely had the right to be there. In that case, he also is not supposed to run because it does not fit that mold that both are allowed to be there. The intruder was not allowed to be there. So in this case, it's probably not lenient, it's more severe, meaning the refuge city is not going to help him, and that's why he does not need to run away. But that's just an interesting side note. Abba Shaul Omer. Now, remember we mentioned that the example that Torah gave from someone who went to the forest and chopping wood, and they're both allowed to be in the forest, so we're learning something from it. So Abba Shaul is learning from that story something else as well. He's saying the story is not about just killing in any way, it's killing using while chopping wood. So it says chopping wood is a job that people do. They don't have to do. There's no mitzvah to chop wood. They do it because they want to do it. It's it's an allowed thing to do. Just like a lot of actions that we do. It's not a mitzvah to chop wood. So, and the example that the Torah is giving is from chopping wood to tell us that the killing had to happen when someone is doing something that they are allowed to do, not a mitzvah, not that they're obligated to do. For example, what are we excluding? We're excluding if a father is killing his son because the son is not acting right, and the father is hitting the son, and as he was hitting the son, he hit him a little bit too hard, and the son died unintentionally, right? So the father is not running to a refuge city because he was performing a mitzvah when he was hitting his son, because the son was not acting right, and there is a mitzvah for a person to straighten out, to educate their children, okay? And that includes, there is a saying, there is a statement in the Torah, Chosech shifto soneh bno, someone who does not use corporal punishment, who doesn't hit their children when they deserve it, obviously not just for fun, when they deserve it, they're hating their children because they're going to let them grow crooked. So nowadays, obviously, there are laws and stuff that it's not exactly something that we do. But nonetheless, that's the halakha. That's what the Torah is saying. So when someone is hitting their children, they smack him, and the guy, the kid, unfortunately died from it. It's the father was performing a mitzvah of raising their child, and therefore they don't have to run to a refuge city when they kill them unintentionally. And the same thing, another example, when and this is even more far out nowadays, when a teacher is hitting a rav rodeh talmido, when a teacher is hitting the student, if in those days, in the olden days, in the old country, it was common for a teacher to hit the students when they didn't do the right thing, they didn't learn properly. So according to the halachic rule, that's allowed and needed. And if the master, the rabbi, not the master, the rabbi or the teacher is hitting someone, the student, and the student died, so they're not obligated to run. And the same thing, a third example, is shliach beidin. What is a shliach beidin? We know, we're learning the Tractate of Makkot. The Tractate of Makkot is talking about lashes, right? It's one of the most common physical bodily punishment that we have. There are the 4 types of death: the skilas, rifa, ereg, and stoning, and etc. Those are the death, the capital punishment, and there is a lesser punishment of lashes. Okay, now how many lashes does a person supposed to get when they are obligated to get lashes? Up to 39. Up to, not necessarily. What is the determining fact? The determining factor is how physically able they are, or how physically fit they are to receive the lashes. So when the court is assigning lashes to someone, they first and foremost need to see if the person is able to receive the lashes. And they have a doctor, they have someone, people who know what the consequences of getting lashes are, and they're checking the health of the person. And if the person is able to only get 10 and not 39, they give him only 10. And so that is the max that they have to give him. They're not allowed to give him 11, because the 11th one will kill him, or will harm him in a terrible way that is not intended. Now, so there is a shliach bedin, there is the guy his job is to give the lashes, right? It's usually the bully that didn't get any other job in the professional world, so he became the lasher. the person is giving the lashes for Beis Din. And he's supposed to, there is another person over there that oversees and says, well, we have to give him 10, so give him 1 and give him 2 and give him 3. And then they miscounted or whatever, and he gave him more and the guy died. Okay? Or the guy died on the 8th one, they died too early. They didn't assess him right and the guy died too early, They thought that he can withstand 10, but after 8 he died. So what happens? Because he is performing a mitzvah of Beis Din, of a court, he is not obligated himself to run to a refuge city. That is the end of the Mishnah. I'll pause if you have any questions. All right, going once. All right.
Yeah, when someone is not liable, because, but still their life is in danger, right? I mean, they may have killed someone accidentally, but if they're not going to a refuge city, they're goners, basically, right? Like in the case of someone in a corridor who's supposed to be there and someone who's not supposed to be there.
What? No. So what do you mean they're goner?
I mean the family of the person that was done in.
No. So there are laws. When is the family allowed and not allowed to kill to take revenge? And we will learn it later in the Masechta. What are the laws? When is the Goel Adam, it's called? When is the relative obligated or allowed to take revenge, and when they're not? And if the person is not allowed to run to a refuge city, it goes hand in hand with not allowed to be killed by the relative. Otherwise, what are you saying here? Right?
Gotcha. Thank you.
Okay. So the Gemara, let's go back to the first case in the Mishnah. The first case in the Mishnah is saying if someone threw a stone to Reshut HaRabim, to the public domain, and it killed someone, so they have to run to a refuge city because it's an unintentional killing. So the Gemara is asking, if it's really public domain, the person is considered, it's an intentional act. I mean, in a public domain, who do you expect to have? You expect to have the public. You cannot go, walk out to Main Street, Fifth Avenue, a street that's full of people, and start throwing stones. This is mazy. This is intentional. How can you call it unintentional killing and send the person to repent in a refuge city? It's an equivalent of intentional. So Amar Rav Shmuel Bar Yitzchak, no. It's not that blatant. What we're talking about here, besoter et kotlo. We're talking about someone who was working in his own part of the wall. There is a wall between the person's court, yard, and outside of it, which is a public domain. And he was working on the wall, and he was working to disassemble the wall, and the wall fell. And when the wall fell, it fell on someone and killed him. So it's not like they're, walking in the middle of Main Street and throwing stones. So the Gemara is saying, yes, but still, it's not good enough, because when someone is doing such a construction job, they need to have a perimeter, They had to make sure that nobody's there. That's why, you build scaffolding and you're building, you're courting places that you're doing construction. You can't just, throw a wall and, and hope that nobody is going to stand there. So it's not good. It's really not really unintentional. So the Gemara is answering, we're talking about someone who's doing construction work of that kind at night. And at night, you wouldn't expect people, it's a typical street in a city, typical public domain. At night is empty, people are home asleep. So therefore, it's unintentional. The Gemara still doesn't like it. And it's saying, also you have to take a look, because, you can't just, they have to have basic safety rules. You can't just throw walls without actually looking. So the Gemara is saying, is answering, we're talking about someone who is destroying a wall into a dumpster, into a place, not dumpster, a place that people dumps the garbage. Meaning, his wall, his home, his court was adjacent to a place where you throw garbage to, and he decided to throw the wall down, and he threw the wall down into where the garbage is. Where the garbage is, you don't expect people to be. That's reasonable. Now we're starting to understand what was happening here, and therefore it's called killing unintentionally. The Gemara still pushes back and still doesn't like it and says, "Ay ashpa chidam." When you're talking about a place that a dumping ground for demolition, that you can put demolition in, which dumping ground you're talking about, which garbage area you're talking about. So said, if it's a place that usually people are expected to be there, because you do have dumping grounds that people are coming in and out of all the time, or often enough for you to pay attention and check it. So then it's a criminal act. And if not, it's not unintentional. It's anus. It's a beyond his control type of an act. Either way, the person should not be running to a refuge city. When did we say a person is running to a refuge city? When it's gross negligence, they don't run. When it's beyond their control, they don't run. Only when it's some sort of a negligence, but not gross negligence, and it's not totally beyond his control, then they run. But here it's either criminal, which is gross negligence, or it's beyond their control. So either way, he should not be running to a refuge city. So what are you saying? So Amar Rav Papa, so Rav Papa comes to the rescue and answers as follows. We're talking about a very, very slim and specific case. You are talking about a dumping place. What does it mean, a dumping place? A place where people go to do their public bathroom. In those days, they didn't have public bathrooms that are all homes and houses with facilities that are safe. People would go to the side, and there would be certain areas. You would know that a certain area is where people go to do their deeds when they need to empty themselves. Okay, so to defecate. So this is the type of place we're talking about, and this is where the wall was adjacent to, and this is what was demolishing into the place where people would defecate. Now you have in these kind of places, again, because they didn't have facilities with walls, etc., you would have places that people go there during the day, which are more protected, more private, behind walls and trees, etc. And you would have places which are less private, and over there you would go only at night. When it's dark, you can go somewhere and you expect nobody to be there. So this is the kind of place that he was demolishing the wall onto. It's a place that you go to do your thing, to defecate. But it's only a place that usually people go to do that at night. And it's not a place that somebody is going there to do it during the day, because it's too public, it's too open. And the person demolished during the day. He didn't expect anybody to be there during the day because it's more public. And someone happened to be there, and he was killed. So that's the case. So sometimes you happen to have people who don't have, they can't find, they have an emergency and they can't find a better place, so they go here. So it's a little more public. The heck with it, let's just do it. So he's not criminal because usually people are not there. And he's also, it's not beyond his control because sometimes people do go there when they don't have a choice, so they do go there. So it's not gross negligence and it's not beyond his control, fitting exactly the criteria of someone to be called unintentional killer and run to a refuge city. Okay, so that is the explanation here. Now, next. Any questions about that? All right. Next. We were talking about the situation where someone threw a stone, right? And as the stone was traveling after it left his hand, the deceased stuck his head out of the window and the stone hit him and he was killed. So that's what we're talking about now. How do we know it? It's a saying of Rabbi Lezer ben Yaakov. How do we know it? So it says, Tano Rabbanon, umatza prat lemantzit atzmo. What is in the example that the Torah is giving? The example the Torah is giving is saying that when two people went to the forest and one of them is chopping wood, and the axe, or the head of the axe flew. And that head of the axe that flew found the head of the other person and killed him. Found. The key word here, found. Umatza. Okay? Meaning, prat lemamtzit, meaning that it has to happen in such a case that the object that was flying found the person, and not that the person found the flying object. If the person stuck his head out the window and they found the flying object, it's their problem. We're talking about someone who is stationary and the flying object hit him. That is the situation, the case that the Torah is talking about, and that fits the exact boundaries of more than beyond his control and less than gross negligence. Okay? מכאן אמר רב אליעזר בן יעקב, אם היא שיצתה אבן מידו, הוציאה לה את ראשו וקיבלה פטור. That's the source of the ruling that Rab Lezer ben Yaakov said, that if someone threw a stone and the stone left his hand and the person put himself in the path of the stone, he found himself, he how did they say it? He placed his head in the public domain and received the blow. So the killer is exempt. That's where it's from. So now we have a whole discussion. What's the discussion? The discussion is a grammatical discussion. It's grammar. We're talking about the word. We're learning it from the word umatza, found, right? That the head of the ox, or the piece that flew, the piece of the shrapnel that flew, found the victim. So meaning the matzah mashma mikara mashma, meaning that that means that the item that was flying found something that was there before. That's what we were trying to explain. So now we are going to bring a proof or a question from another verse in the Torah, in another subject completely, and over there it's clear that the word umatzah means later. That it didn't happen, it wasn't there before, it's coming later. What is that verse? It's a whole different story. That verse is talking about someone who is buying and purchasing back, selling and purchasing back his the field that belongs to his family. We know that the land of Israel was divided to 12 tribes. Each tribe got their parcel of land. Within the tribal area, each family got their parcel of land. And within that family, each household in that family got their parcel of land. So each piece of land in the land of Israel originally belonged to a specific family, to a specific lineage. Now, the Torah is really saying that if God gave you that piece of land, you should keep it, right? But people fall on hard times, and sometimes they ran out of money, and the only thing that they have is the backyard or that field, and they have to sell it. So they sold their lot. Okay. Now, if someone sold the lot that he got from his ancestors, right, and then he straightened himself out, he fell on better times, and he got money, and now he's able to repurchase it, to buy it back from the person he sold it to. So the purchaser is obligated, according to the laws of Torah, to sell it back, because he shouldn't lose. He should get the money, the full value of the land at the time of the repurchase, but they're obligated to sell it. That is the story that we're talking about. So what are we saying? So in that story, the verse goes as follows. Okay, if someone had a land, a parcel of land, and they were forced to sell it, and they sold it, and not forced to sell it, they sold it, and then vehisiga yado, and then he was able to afford. He found new money. He was able to afford umatza kedei geulato, and he was able to find enough money to redeem or purchase back that piece of land. So when we say umatza, what does it mean umatza? So the Gemara is saying that it's new money and not old money. Meaning, if the money that the person is now using to repurchase the land, he had that money before, or better yet, that property, he had property, additional property, and that property he had from before, and now he is selling the property that he has in order to repurchase his ancestor's lot that he sold earlier. That's not allowed, because he shouldn't have sold it to begin with. If he has that money, obviously, right? If he has money that now he can sell he can use to buy it, you should have done it before, right? So the Torah is stating the story, is giving us the law with the story, that it needs to be umatzah, it needs to be new money that was found now, and not money that you had before when you sold it originally. What are we trying to prevent? We're trying to prevent some sort of unfair advantage. Because what happens? Let's say the person has two fields, okay? One field, and they started being the same, okay? And then he sold one of the fields, and then the other field became bad. I don't know, there was an oil spill, I don't know, something, the field became bad, doesn't produce. So what does the person can say? Aha, I sold that other, the good field, I sold already, but I have the right to buy it, so let me sell this land that I can't grow anything on right now. I'll sell it to someone to buy a high riser. They will give me the money, and I'm going to go and sell and buy back the good field that I sold 2 years ago. Or a person moved, okay? They have two fields, one field in city A and one field in city B. And initially they lived in city A, and they sold the field in city B and left the field in city A, and then they moved to city B. So now they want to repurchase the field that they sold in city B and sell, in order to finance it, to sell the one from city A. No, you can't do it, because you had it to begin with, and you can't play games like that. This is unfair advantage, and it's not allowed. You have to use new money, new property in order to redeem the old property. That's what we say from the word matzah in that case. So the question is clear. what are we saying in our case, in the case of someone who's a piece of shrapnel that found someone that was there and killed him? We're saying that the word matzah means that it found someone that was there already. And here we're saying found new found money. So which one is it? When the Torah is saying found, does it mean found that was there before, or found new found money? So Amar Rava answers, listen, it's a word, but you can use, here it's being used one way, and here it's being used another way, and let me prove it to you how. It says each place is dealing with the context. Okay, it depends in the context. You can't just take the word in an isolated form and say this word means X. This word means X here, but it means Y there. How do we know? When you're talking about buying and selling a field, the Torah is mentioning when a person was able to afford, v'esiga yado, was able to afford, is written in the Hebrew form of a future. Later he is siga yado. So if we're talking about future, the word found also talking about future. New found money. But here we're talking about found a person in a forest, right? So just like the forest was there to begin with, the way the verse is constructed, the word forest is mentioned right next to the word of the person, mentioning the person who was there, standing there. Just like the forest was there, the person was there. And the shrapnel flew and found him. That's why you can explain the word one way here and another way there. All right, any questions? All right, let's start the next piece. The next piece is, it's going to take a little bit, but we'll go through it. We're not going to finish it today, but we'll start. Okay. Hazorak Evan, we're talking about Abba Shaul, right? Abba Shaul was saying someone throws a stone and another person stuck his head, right? That's what we're talking about. So I'm sorry. So and then Abba Shaul is learning also. Abba Shaul is learning that just like when someone go to chop wood, and the chopping of the wood is a permissible action, is an optional action. It's something that it's allowed to do. It's not a mitzvah. So is anyone else who's doing who's killing unintentionally. It has to be when they don't do a mitzvah, and that's why if it's a court messenger if it's a court if it's a policeman who was assigned to give lashes to the person is performing a mitzvah, or if it's a father trying to straighten out, educate his son, and something terrible happened, that's not falling into the same category. That's what we learn. So Amar le'ahu merabanan le'Rava. So one guy from the students from the rabbis told Rava, how do we know that chopping wood is is not an obligation, it's not a mitzvah? How do we know that? Maybe we're talking about here chopping wood for sukkah. You have to build a sukkah from someone that the schach, the top of the sukkah, the schach, must be from wood. You cannot put cement or iron or anything that's not growing from the ground. You have to cut a branch. You have to cut wood. It has to be something that grows. Okay, and it also must be something that's disconnected from the ground. It has to be chopped. You cannot take a tree that it's still in the ground and bend it over and make a schach out of it. You have to cut it. Oh, so you have to cut wood. Here we go. Here is an opportunity to cut wood, which is a legitimate mitzvah. So what are you telling me that only if it's an optional chopping of the wood? Maybe it's a chopping of the wood, which is his mitzvah. That's example number one. Example number two, there is another mitzvah that's being done with wood, and that's the wood that's being used for the korbanot, in the altar, right? In Bet HaMikdash, we had a big altar. It was 32 amot by 32 amot, which is basically 16 yard by 16 yard, a big, huge mama. On top it was 30, whatever, 15, whatever it was, a big, a square, 28. It was a big square, and on top of it there were 3 bonfires, and one of them, it was pretty big bonfire in the middle to burn all of the korbanot, all of the offerings, right? So it's actually was a mitzvah to bring this wood. People would donate. They got an aliyah in shul. I donate a few trees to the Bet HaMikdash. So it's a mitzvah. So why are you telling me that chopping wood is an optional event? ואפילו אחי אמר רחמנא ליגלי, ואפילו אחי אמר רחמנא ליגלי, and even though this is chopping wood, we can say that the God is telling us that even in that case, a person should run to a refuge city. So, Amar lekevan she'im atzah chatuv lav mitzvah ashtana milav mitzvah. So the Gemara is answering, but this answer is just the beginning of the story, and we're gonna have to repeat some of it next time. But what he's saying is there is no mitzvah to chop wood for the sukkah. There is a mitzvah to use chopped wood. So if you go to the forest and you find chopped wood, by the way, this is when I was young, and we actually went to the woods in front of our house, and we didn't actually usually chopped wood. We used branches that fell. So you find a branch or you find wood that fell, you can use it. So there is no real mitzvah to go chop wood. There's a mitzvah to use wood which is chopped, but there is no mitzvah to chop wood, and therefore it's called machshirei mitzvah. It's an enabler to the mitzvah. It's not the mitzvah itself, and therefore we still hold that when the Torah is saying that someone chops wood, it's an optional thing, because you don't really have to chop wood. You need to use chopped wood, but you don't need to actually, it's not the mitzvah to chop the wood. That is where we're going to stop now, and we're going to continue, God willing, next time.